Hello, I'm Tim Wilde, and I'm going to give you my wild thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series on Disney Plus, Part 1. Part 1 and 2 just came out last night. It's 4 in the morning for me here in Utah on the 27th. It just aired, and I crashed last night because of my work schedule. I was too tired to stay up and watch, and I really wanted to make sure I was rested to be able to stay awake for it, as excited as I was to watch this series. I had, mixed feelings about the Mandalorian series, seasons 1 and 2. The best part of it was the reveal of Luke Skywalker in season 1. It was fine watching him do stuff in season 2, but season 1 was, that finale was like the best part of the Mandalorian. Very disappointed in Boba Fett because it was not true at all to the character. And it's not just my interpretation of the character in the Disney universe. I don't feel like it was true to the character, but we're not going to get into all that. I've already reviewed all those, I think. It doesn't matter. This is something I was expecting a lot more from, though. This is something that Ewan McGregor, who is very passionate about the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was working on. It's not like this was his script or anything, but this is something that he's believed in for a long time. And I felt like his involvement and his endorsing was going to be was going to raise the stakes on what Disney was going to do with this character. It wasn't just like Boba Fett where they thought they could, throw some stupid content out there to sell some Lego sets and just no one would care. A lot of people cared. A lot of people liked it too, let's be fair. But this one, Obi-Wan Kenobi is much more pinnacle and critical character in the Star Wars universe and in the movies. You have his influence, his presence. He was like pretty much next to Luke and Han. He was the main character. He was like he was the mentor role for Luke Skywalker, kicking off the trilogy. But like everything, all the exposition, everything that came through him, motivating Darth Vader, challenging and helping Luke rise to the call of duty. The conflict back and forth with, did he lie about his father? He didn't tell him about Leia. All that stuff. Like the water, what do they call that? The water ripples from everything with Obi-Wan in the first movie affected everything else in the canon. He was a very critical character. And then you have the opening, or the prequel series, which came out, and then you had the background of Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, give or take some aspects of that. But overall, Obi-Wan Kenobi is a fan favorite. He's a very critical and exciting and a fun character, and Ewan McGregor has knocked it out of the park with him since day one. No one who complains about anything with the prequels ever has anything bad to say about Obi-Wan. That's not just me saying that. That's not just a random thought. That's a general observation. I've never seen, and I don't dive into the content. I'm sure there's negative people out there on anything, but everyone collectively agrees that Ewan McGregor is a great portrayal, a very good tribute to Sir Alec Guinness, who played him in episode 1, 2, and 3, or sorry, 4, 5, and 6. Anyway, the character is well established and popular and very heartfelt. He's very important to the spirit, I think, of what Star Wars started as. The push on hope. I think the original 3 trilogies, that's what it's about, is hope. His redemption with his believing in Obi-Wan, that conflict, believing in the good in Anakin. I think that's a conflict that Luke captured and he pushed that led to the redemption and the atonement of Anakin Skywalker. I don't think that was there for Obi-Wan. I don't think he had that belief, even when Padme on her deathbed was saying there was still good in him. I think he doubted that. That's why in the first movie he had, in all the movies, he had a little bit of hesitancy to inspire or to encourage Luke to pursue the redemption of Vader. It was all about overcoming evil and triumphing over the Emperor, and even if that meant facing and destroying Darth Vader, it had to be done. Sorry, I don't know why I'm talking about the character so much, except for the title character is kind of important. But I'm just saying, I really feel there's a lot of importance and, like I said, high stakes to this character. When I went into part 1 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I was excited, and it opened. This is a little bit of it's not a little bit spoilers, and I haven't watched episode 2 yet, part 2. So if you're watching this, you probably watched part 1 and 2, because I'm sure part 2 was way more exciting than my wild thoughts on part 1. So surely you watched that, and you maybe got around to hearing what I had to say. But part 1 opened with the attack on the Jedi Temple, which was awesome, and I'm sure some of those kids, I don't know if they were supposed to be relevant or whatever, but they were the Padawans at the temple that we know are going to get massacred. They said, run, they said, what do we do now when their master died? And you're watching Jedi, like, finally, a good shot of the Jedi execute, or Order 66 being executed. Finally, we had the one long shot in the main hall in episode 3. It's not like we need to see this big massacre and this big devastating thing, but you want to see the Jedi put up a little bit of a fight, and this you got to see that. But for a longer take, and you had some way awesome hallway action where you could see Jedi actually doing something, responding. My only problem with that is like that one Jedi doing the weird Tai Chi or whatever with the kids in the which that part's fine. I don't care about that. That's cool Jedi mystic stuff. But like all this carnage and stuff that the destruction was going all the way through the temple, right up to the hallway, to their balcony that they were sitting in or whatever. And she didn't sense or feel any kind of interruption spiritually through the force of what was going on in the temple, that they were still conducting their little Tai Chi. Apparently their little Tai Chi stuff was not really connecting them spiritually to the force, because they completely missed the negative energy and the devastation happening right in their chambers. And there's no alarm in the Jedi Temple. Now, these are stupid, nitpicky things, and I'm not gonna do that through this series. I did that a lot through Boba Fett. I did a little bit through Mandalorian, but this is something I care a lot more about. And I'm just saying it's not perfect. That's all I'm saying. There are little things that it's not perfect. Is that the crate dragon that they're sitting there carving out meat? They have their assembly line makeshift butcher shop where they're cutting and packaging meat. Is that the crate dragon from the Mandalorian series? That's gross. That meat is 10 years old. I mean, whatever. It's their society, their life. That's what they do. I don't know how decomposition works on a crate dragon, but if that's what that is, that's disgusting. But whatever. No refrigeration process. They're just packaging it, moving on. I don't understand Star Wars bacteria, and I'm not going to get into speculations on what should or shouldn't be done with that. But I was like, ew. 10 years later, they're still eating that carcass? That's gross. Anyway, if that's what it was, it looked like it because it was that big of a thing. So, I mean, what else would it be? Of course, that is not near Mos Eisley. That's way north, closer to Mos Espa, from my memory of the geography on Tatooine in the Mandalorian series. Now, Obi-Wan. Awesome. The stuff with the Inquisitors when they first land and they get out of their ship and they start walking around talking to people. All that stuff felt very, very, very much like the original. As I've mentioned this before in these reviews about this Disney series, the Wizards of the Coast, not Wizards of the Coast, no. The West End games, the original Star Wars role-playing game that came out in the 90s. I think the first version came out, maybe it was late 80s, but the second edition came out in the early 90s. That introduced and began the content that went in, that was given to Timothy Zahn and Kathy Tyers and Kevin Anderson, all those that wrote those original Star Wars books that kicked off and exploded the expanded universe. All that stuff came from the source material that was from West End Games role-playing game, that company. And that's what me and my friends played all through high school and then some. This rule system, or the rule system, but also the content, the universe that this established long before the prequels, was just rich, and it felt so Star Wars, and that was the tone that went into the books. And everyone looks at these new content, these series, these movies, everything after even the prequels, and they're like, well, how does this feel tonally to the original series and the books? Even the video games and all those other means of media for Star Wars for all those years, it all came in the same packaging, or at least the same tone, very different packaging. But it felt Star Wars-y. And any author that talks about Star Wars, when you go into a Star Wars project, writing script, writing characters, especially writing existing canonized characters, they all say the same thing, that the most important thing you have to do is make it, you have to consider that well, everyone except for Rian Johnson, everyone says you have to consider if this feels like Star Wars and if this feels true to the characters that are so popular. Now, that's the same obvious concept you're going to get when you're writing about any popular franchise character. It could be Superman or whatever, Spider-Man, who cares? But this series finally really captures that better than anything else. Mandalorian did a decent job. I think the Solo movie and Rogue One did a really good job of that. The sequel series movies, not at all. And this isn't a criticism of those. I'm just saying they didn't capture and feel like Star Wars. They didn't feel like that first series. The episode 7 closely did, whatever that one's called, Force Awakens. That one was a little bit better. That felt like the movies, but it still didn't feel Star Wars. It felt better than the prequels did. But this series, them walking around, the dialogue just in some little cafe on the side of the street, and just some random street on Mos Eisley, where the Inquisitors are sitting there talking it up and trying to just kind of bait or kind of fizzle or weed out the smoke out is the word, the hiding Jedi, just badgering patrons in the streets. All that stuff felt like Star Wars. Some business transactions going on. The guy trying to, getting cheated in his labor with the cutting out the carcass for 10 years. That kind of stuff. The everyday feel of Star Wars that you don't get too much in the movies because they don't have a lot of time to invest in that. I get that. But that's what was cool about this. That's why these series are great, because you can slow down and you can do this world building. And I liked it. I think it felt very much like Tatooine from the original movies. If you had a big Star Destroyer flying, which they've done in video games and other things, comics, even modern comics, Star Destroyers coming down, dropping out barricade or complete barracks. I've seen books that have actual barracks in Mos Eisley. Deploying stormtroopers, running through, trying to find rebel contacts, or trying to find Jedi, or tracking down Obi-Wan, whatever. That's too big of an event for Mos Eisley going into episode 4, because episode 4 is supposed to be like where, especially in the old radio dramas where they spend a little more time talking about the background behind this, with what Vader was thinking about this stupid planet, because he hates Tatooine. And again, this is before the prequels where he wasn't from Tatooine. But this, just having a few Inquisitors come down, it seems a little more low-level, low-key event that was going to strike into the hearts and terrorize the citizens. And the dialogue that the patrons said about, you don't have any rule here, we're too far away from the Empire, unless she gets her hand cut off, whatever. That's good. That's really good, because by time episode 4 happens, 9 years after this series, then now they're dropping an entire garrison of troopers, and they're walking around and muscling people on the street, and they are patrolling and stopping speeders, looking for the droids and everything, and no one's going to mess with them because it's a big military faction. I like that. I really do. I like how grounded this feels. How well, because the Empire's still growing at this point. They have their presence everywhere, but the Senate is still in existence. We know that didn't fall until episode 4, 10 or 9 years after the series. They were ruled by their local governors, but still under the military was essentially all the Empire was. They weren't like the governing power. The Emperor didn't have all power. It was still governed and controlled by the Senate. Speaking of the Senate, all the stuff with Leia, I loved it. That little girl playing Leia, just young and just kind of sweet, but also like kind of snarky and just kind of adventurous and mischievous. That's perfect. That's perfect totally for that character. The little girl does a really good job. She's really cute. And the second they cut from Obi-Wan to her, when they're dressing her up and it was like a little decoy. Yeah, that joke didn't really play out. Whatever. She's, going out running around in the Force instead of doing her thing. With her responsibilities with the formalities of being a princess. That's fine. It's obvious stuff. It's cute. I liked it. I love Alderaan. I love they had old adventures that used to portray little pieces or little aspects of Alderaan, characters that survived Alderaan in these old role-playing games. When episode 3 came out, that was one of my favorite moments, is when they separate the twins and Bail takes Leia. He says, we're going to adopt her. We always wanted to adopt a little girl, just like they showed in this series. And then they show the shot of him flying into... they show the Tantive 4 flying into Alderaan at the end of episode 3. And docking... Or they don't show the docking, but I'm saying he gets there and walks out to the balcony of this beautiful palace and gorgeous scenery, just forested... Just, stunning landscape of Alderaan, this beautiful kind of like Maine, Canada, beautiful north New York, just beautiful vegetation, just beautiful lakes and stuff. Maybe a little more mountainous than those examples, but just saying, stunning and gorgeous. And I love seeing the palace. I think that stuff is so cool. I always loved Tatooine, and also, I don't know if I have it at a quick grab. Oh, it's down there. Anyway, the Ralph McQuarrie, the art book, the way he depicted the original art of Alderaan. I'll grab it for my next episode if you're curious. The architecture and the buildings, the white buildings, just like at the end of episode 3, is very consistent with the original concept of what Alderaan looked like. Beautiful vegetation, beautiful, stunning white Imperial-like planet. Not Star Wars Imperial, but just beautiful structures for the palaces. I think it's gorgeous. Alderaan is all about peace. That's their whole thing. In the original content, they didn't have weapons. They didn't have a military. They only had the armed guard for the royal, for the royal palace. But and that's what Leia's troops were, the rebel troopers that turned out to be rebel troopers later. That was all about just her royal guard, her security. That's all it was, and that's why they were like no match for the stormtroopers when they took over the Tantive 4 in episode 4. But I like that, and it's interesting that their helmets, the weird royal guards in this one, and they did show some of those. They have similar clothing. They did have royal guards, the Alderaanian royal guards in the episode 3 movie. There were times when you saw Bale and he had his sentries with him or whatever, and they had kind of weird blue tunics or whatever that were kind of cut like awkward, similar to the different styles that you see here. You don't see the rebel trooper with the black vest on the gray suit with a weird helmet. The big shovel helmets, those guys aren't here, because those are rebel troopers. I don't know how that all works later. Maybe they're lower ground military for Alderaan, but whatever. At least in this universe, I think they abandoned there's no weapons on Alderaan stuff. Anyway, Alderaan was awesome. I liked it. I liked the concept. I liked that Leia gets discovered, and that's what triggers and kicks off Obi-Wan on this journey. I like the resistance he had. I like the discouragement he has. This is rich, deep growth for this character, that he's got 10 years and the whole setup where the Inquisitor's like, that's the fall of the Jedi. They can't. He says the Jedi Code, also from West End Games, by the way. There's the Jedi Code. I'm not going to try to recite it. How he said it's an itch, and they can't help but to expose themselves by doing good, and then rumors spread fast in the galaxy, and then they track him down. Then Obi-Wan is smart enough not to do it, and that was a good part of the story where it cut right from that kind of scenario to Obi-Wan watching some guy get conned out of some money, and Obi-Wan doesn't do anything. The guy's like, oh, you got a problem, and he just like turns the other cheek, just kind of just moves on. That's not turns the other cheek's a different reference, but he turns a blind eye. That's what he does. And he just sits on there and just minds his own business. He doesn't get involved. And then later on, when the Jedi comes out and finds him in the desert, says, "You're Obi-Wan. You're a hero. We need to do something. What's our next move?" And he's like, "Nothing. Go bury your lightsaber and just live an ordinary life. That's the only way you can survive." He knows there's no gathering of the Jedi that's going to do anything against the military faction of the Empire, and definitely not the cunning and the power of the Inquisitors, which I'm not a huge fan of these Inquisitors. I'm just gonna say, even in Rebels and those cartoons, I was like, they're all right. Never what I had in mind in my role-playing games when I ran them with my friends in high school. We had awesome Inquisitor stories, and they were really cool. My design of character of Inquisitor, and it was my design. I thought there's like dark robe Jedi with uniform lightsabers, just like these do. But like, I don't know, they're fine, but they were. I thought they were a little more. Whatever. I think I had some better ideas than what any of the Inquisitor stuff has been within Rebels, and I can't argue that because no one else knows what my stuff is other than my books and my campaign drawings and stuff like that. Anyway, who cares? Just saying, the dialogue was decent. Their interactions were decent. It was really cool. Just a little low grade ship, just flying, or a small ship flying in, rustling up people, trying to stir them up, and then get people freaked out. pulling out the lightsabers on the street. I'm sure that was kind of exciting. That was going to be a story. But the whole thing with the Jedi exposing themselves, getting themselves hunted down, and that's the line at the end of the movie with the guy who's like, they'll come looking for Leia. They'll hunt themselves, essentially. They'll reveal and they'll expose themselves. I like that idea that Obi-Wan is like, we're not going to survive this. The only chance we have, A New Hope, which maybe that's what he's going to get. And that might be the arc of this story for him, for his character arc, and the story arc is like, by the end of this, he's going to say, okay, we really need to put all of our money on Luke and Leia. That, specifically Luke at the beginning. I have to train him. He already established in this episode that he has to train. He was talking to Ben. He's like, he must be trained. But he is going to be the hope of the future. That's who Luke was. Luke was A New Hope. There's a lot of meanings to that title in the first movie, even though it wasn't originally called A New Hope. But I think that's where he is. Obi-Wan's like discouraged. He's frustrated. He's agonized with his failures. He's tormented, obviously, because he's having nightmares about his failure. Trying desperately. He's remembering Yoda said, I'm going to give you some training to commune with Qui-Gon or whatever. He didn't know what that meant. And he's sat there and he was kept asking him, Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon, are you there? And he's like trying to talk to him in this cave. And Obi-Wan just doesn't know what to do. I like that. That's a good starting off point. He's just living his life, going to a simple job. Just basically, that job is just to cut him some meat every day. It seems like he doesn't need the money. He's not doing anything, and I'm sure he's not getting much money enough to rent the stable every day for his emu or whatever those things are called. And that's it. He's just there, existing, depressed, still heartbroken from his failure with Anakin, still devastated the loss of the entire Jedi Order that he was such a noble and valiant leader in and a believer in. He said, we lost. It's over. The war is over. They won. That's it. Just be sad and go find a simple life and survive. That's all you can do. And by the end of it, Bail approaches and says, Obi-Wan had said he's not the man he once was, and Bail calls him up. He says, she is your responsibility too. And don't let your failures, what you feel of a failure with Anakin, get the best of you. You can't save Anakin. You can save her. And now, in the present, she needs your help. I love that. That's not what he said, but that's what he was saying. It's really cool. Really good world building. The music was beautiful. I love the cinematography, the special effects. There was a couple. I know people are gonna rip on me for that. Maybe my TV's just too awesome. I don't know. But there's a couple of shots where he's sitting on a rock, Obi-Wan, and you can tell he's not really sitting on a rock. And I know how they do this brilliant, their whatever they call it, their new little CGI theater thing, the way they developed that for the Mandalorian series, how they're filming these. It's awesome technology and everything. I'm not saying it's bad CGI and stuff. It's just there's a few shots where I'm like, there's no texture there. He's not actually interacting with a rock, and it would just be fun if it was like some of it was shot outdoors. The parts that were shot outdoors, or at least some reconstruction of a forest, was the chase scene with Leia, where the thugs were trying to grab her, and they were bumping into branches and twigs and stuff that were not that obstructive. And I was like, hey, this is a little dumb. That chase was pretty dumb. Gotta say that. Not as dumb as the moped chase in Boba Fett, but I'm just saying, it was these are three grown men that couldn't chase down a girl that at the beginning of the sprint after her, she was 5 feet away. I'm pretty sure any of them could capture a 5 foot or a 10-year-old Leia from beginning at 5 feet away. Whatever. Anyway, but that's not the point. It was just even the way they did her trying to escape. They try to do this thing where she knows the forest and she's really agile and all that, and it was just whatever. Anyway, it was good. I still liked it. I like the girl that plays Leia. The music though is really tonally on key for Obi-Wan and for the universe, and the way it's shot. This feels like A New Hope. It really does. It's got a good balance of long shots and the way they design. I know they said this, that when all of these series, when they film it, they try to, the directors and the production designers and the cinematographers, they all try to figure out how George Lucas, 1977 George Lucas, would have wanted to do this shot. They film it in his style, not prequel style, but his original style, how the original series felt. And they did well. This series, the first episode, feels like A New Hope. It really does. And you get to expansion of seeing Alderaan. It's awesome. I can't wait for Vader to be introduced. Watching this setup, I'm excited about what's going to happen next. I couldn't say that with Boba Fett, and I didn't say that too much with Mandalorian. But right now, I'm invested. I am excited to see what happens next. And part of it's because I love the character. I've always loved Obi-Wan. And I love Ewan McGregor. And I think he's still got it. He has the emotion. You can just watch any of these scenes from this episode, and he's got that emotion, that torment, and it's there. It's transparent, and he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and he doesn't hide it. His dialogue with Ben, I love that too, where he's trying to give him the T-16 Skyhopper toy, the model that he ends up having cleaned up later on in the movie. It's awesome watching Luke up on there pretending he's like flying, and Anakin and Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan giving this little smile as he's watching him through the binoculars. All that stuff is good. It's good character development. This character feels like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm excited for the rest of it. This one kind of long. The other ones I don't think are going to be too long. Less like there's all these events I really got to comment on. But I just want to say again, love the character, I love the passion, I love the art, I love the care and the love that they give this character in this story, because this is, like I said, I think this is much higher stakes than anything they've done in these series, probably anything they've done since the series movies, and definitely this has a more passion and care and concern than the sequel series. But this is right up there with Rogue One and Solo, which I enjoyed. I think those felt more Star Wars than anything else that we've had for years. I'm not talking about the cartoons and all that stuff. Anyway, I'm excited to see what happens next. If you watch this, thanks for watching. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon after I watch the next one. Thanks for watching.